In a small, dusty town where the sun barely peeked through thick clouds, there lived an undertaker named Mr. Wells. He was a quiet man, always dressed in dark clothing that matched the somber nature of his job. While his neighbors bustled about amidst laughter and chatter, Mr. Wells was often seen alone, tending to his duties with a calm and steady hand. Day after day, he prepared bodies for their final rest, doing so with great care and dignity. Although he was underappreciated, those who understood the work he did recognized the weight he carried on his shoulders. Each life he handled felt like a fragment of his own heart. His steady demeanor seemed unbreakable. However, inside, he felt a swirl of emotions, sadness for the families left behind and gratitude for the love of his wife, Clara. She was his light in the otherwise heavy darkness of his world. Clara's laughter echoed through their home, a soothing contrast to the silence that cloaked Mr. Wells's daily life. The townsfolk often overlooked him, but Clara knew that behind his stoic face lay a man full of dreams and deep love, an everyday hero whose heart beat softly among whispers of loss. As the sun rose slowly over the horizon, its pale light filtered through the heavy clouds, casting a muted glow over the town. Mr. Wells woke to the familiar sounds of morning, the soft whisper of wind and the distant clattering of horse hooves on cobblestone. He dressed methodically, slipping into his dark coat, a routine that soothed him as he prepared for another day at the funeral home. Today felt different, though. Something hung in the air, a sense of anticipation that made his skin prickle. As he stepped outside, he noticed a knot of men gathered at the edge of town. Their voices were low and urgent, forming a murmur that seemed unsettling against the stillness of his surroundings. Just beyond the group, he spotted their horses, restless and stamping, as if they too sensed the tension brewing. Mr. Wells' eyes narrowed as he tried to catch snippets of their conversation. He could see worn hats pulled low over furrowed brows and sharp glares exchanged among them. It was an ordinary day morphing into something more ominous, a warning bell ringing quietly in his heart that only deepened when he thought about Clara inside their home, blissfully unaware of the storm approaching. Just as the morning settled into a tense stillness, the sound of thundering hooves broke through the quiet. A rough-looking posse rode into town, their silhouettes framed against the gray sky like shadows of trouble. Dust kicked up around their horses, swirling in the air and adding to the unease that already lingered. They were a ragged bunch, clad in worn leather and wide-brimmed hats that concealed their faces, giving them an intimidating presence. As they entered, townsfolk paused in their daily routines, eyes drawn to the newcomers. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Who were they? What did they want? The posse dismounted with a sense of purpose, their boots hitting the ground with a heavy finality. Mr. Wells watched from a distance, his heart racing as he noticed how the men scanned the street with sharp glances, as if searching for something or someone. The tension thickened like fog, causing even the bravest souls to retreat indoors. Mr. Wells felt an instinctive urge to protect Clara, but he also knew he had to remain calm. Something was amiss, and he could feel it deep within his bones as he stood frozen, watching the unfolding scene with growing dread. Clara stood at the window, her hands resting on the sill as she watched the morning unfold. With her gentle smile and warm heart, she was the bright spark in Mr. Wells's otherwise dark world. Her kindness radiated through their home, touching everyone who entered. While her husband prepared the departed for their final journey, Clara offered comfort to grieving families, always ready with a listening ear or a soothing word. The bond between Clara and Mr. Wells was as strong as the roots of an old oak tree, deep and unwavering. He admired her strength and compassion, qualities that helped lift the weight of his somber profession. Even on the darkest days, when sorrow filled the air, Clara's laughter could be heard drifting through their home like a sweet melody, reminding him that life still had its joys. As Mr. Wells watched the posse from a distance, his thoughts turned to Clara's unwavering belief in helping others. She often reminded him that every life deserved dignity and love, even in death. Little did she know that today would challenge that very belief, as shadows loomed closer to their peaceful life. Her innocence made her a beacon of hope in a town now thick with uncertainty. As Mr. Wells stood on the edge of town, his heart raced at the sight of Clara through the window, her silhouette framed by soft morning light. A feeling of warmth washed over him, and for a brief moment, the world outside faded away. She caught his eye and smiled, her gaze full of love and unwavering support, a silent promise that they were in this together despite the darkness surrounding them. In that fleeting moment, they shared a connection deeper than words, a bond fortified by years spent nurturing each other's hearts. The worries and fears of Mr. Wells melted slightly as he leaned against the doorframe, taking comfort in her presence. Then, just as he began to feel at ease, Clara suddenly turned her attention toward the gathering posse outside. With determined steps, she moved away from the window, her kindness pushing her to approach those rough men. "Clara!" Mr. Wells called out instinctively, but the sound escaped too late. She was already stepping onto the porch. Panic surged through him as he watched her walk towards danger, oblivious to the threat lurking just beyond their quiet life. His heart dropped as he realized that this was no ordinary day. Something was about to change forever. Clara stepped confidently toward the posse, her kind heart compelling her to reach out to the rugged men. As she approached, Mr. Wells's stomach twisted with dread, his mind racing. The lead rider, a tall man with a scar running down his cheek, eyed Clara with an unsettling glint. "We need your wife to come with us," he declared, his voice gruff and commanding. Confusion washed over Mr. Wells, mixing with panic as he stepped forward. "What do you want with her?" he demanded, his voice trembling. The posse exchanged glances, and the atmosphere thickened with tension. "It ain't about what we want," the man replied sharply. "It's about what must be done." Mr. Wells's heart raced as he tried to comprehend the implications of their words. The crowd that had gathered seemed to hold its breath, eyes darting between Clara and the men on horseback. Clara remained calm, her brow furrowed with concern but her spirit unyielding. "I can help," she said gently, trying to soothe the situation. But Mr. Wells felt helpless as he realized they were not just asking. They were demanding. The unsettling weight of uncertainty hung in the air, and he knew this moment would change everything for them both. As the tension in the air thickened like an impending storm, Mr. Wells felt the weight of his emotions pressing down on him. Unable to shake his growing anxiety, he dug into his pocket and pulled out a pack of cigarettes, an old habit that felt almost foreign in this moment of turmoil. With shaky hands, he took one out and lit it, the flicker of the match momentarily illuminating his drawn features. The first drag was heavy, the smoke swirling around him like the chaos brewing inside. Each puff seemed to symbolize his internal struggle between anger and sorrow, a war raging within him as he watched Clara standing bravely before the posse. He could see her determination, but it only intensified his despair. The wisps of smoke curled upward, dissipating into the air, much like his hopes of keeping her safe. Around him, whispers filled the crowd as eyes darted between Clara and the men demanding her presence. Mr. Wells felt an overwhelming sense of helplessness as he stood there, cigarette in hand, grappling with unanswerable questions. What would happen to Clara? How could he protect her? The smoke drifted away, yet he remained anchored in place, caught between fear and love in a world suddenly turned upside down. With the cigarette still lingering between his fingers, Mr. Wells took a deep breath, steeling himself for what he knew he had to do. The crowd's murmurs faded into a dull roar as he stepped forward, torn between the urge to protect Clara and the need to confront the posse directly. He felt his heart hammering in his chest, each beat echoing the conflict within him. "Clara!" he called out, his voice strained as he moved closer to where she stood defiantly before the men. The lead rider turned slightly, a smug smirk creeping across his face, and for a moment, Mr. Wells's insides twisted with both anger and fear. He wanted to rush to her side and pull her away from this dangerous gathering, but another part of him urged caution. He didn't want to escalate the situation. As he approached the posse, he tried to gauge their intentions through narrowed eyes. "What do you want with my wife?" His voice wavered slightly but held firm beneath the weight of his emotions. The posse's demeanor was threatening, Yet Clara's calm resolve softened the chaos swirling around them. In that moment, Mr. Wells realized that whatever happened next could change everything. His love for Clara battling against the unknown that lay ahead. With the posse's demands lingering in the air, Clara turned to Mr. Wells, her expression a mix of determination and warmth. "I love you, Henry," she said softly, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. She stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking as she reached out to cup his cheek with a gentle hand. "No matter what happens, remember that." His heart ached at the sight of her trying to comfort him when he was the one who should protect her. "Clara, please," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Don't go with them. We can figure something out." But deep down, he knew this was more than just a choice she made. It felt almost like a destiny she was accepting. She smiled, though her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I can't let fear decide for me. You taught me that every life has value, even in hard times." The gravity of her words hung between them, mingling with the flicker of hope that she could somehow walk away from this. As they shared one final look, time seemed to stand still. Her brave spirit illuminated the dark clouds looming overhead. Clara took a step back toward the men, and at that moment, Mr. Wells realized that this heart-wrenching goodbye would forever haunt him. As the posse mounted their horses, a heavy silence enveloped the town, broken only by the sound of hooves striking the ground. Dust swirled around them like a shroud, cloaking Mr. Wells in a haze of despair as he stood frozen on the porch, watching Clara slowly disappear from his life. Her figure grew smaller as she was led away, each step taken by the horses echoing in his heart like a drumbeat of loss. The lead rider glanced back at Mr. Wells, a smirk creeping across his face that ignited a fire of anger within him, but he felt powerless to act. He wanted to scream, to run after them, but his legs felt heavy and rooted to the spot. The townsfolk watched in hushed disbelief, their faces reflecting his own shock and sorrow as they stood witness to this heartbreaking scene. Clara turned slightly in her saddle, her eyes meeting Mr. Wells's one last time. A moment stretched thin with unspoken words and love that pierced through the chaos. As they rode off into the distance, taking with them not just Clara but a part of Mr. Wells's very soul, he felt an overwhelming emptiness settle in his chest. The world he knew began to crumble around him, leaving him stranded in a reality he could hardly bear to face. In the days that followed Clara's departure, a suffocating emptiness settled into Mr. Wells's heart, wrapping around him like a heavy shroud. The silence in their home was deafening, only broken by the occasional creak of the floorboards or the whisper of wind outside. Each room held echoes of her laughter and warmth, reminders of the life they had built together now shattered into fragments. Mr. Wells wandered aimlessly through his daily routines, yet everything felt hollow without her presence. The faces of grieving families he assisted took on a new meaning. He now understood their pain on a deeper level. Each farewell reminded him of his own loss, and tears often threatened to spill as he prepared the departed for their final rest. Conflicting emotions churned within him: anger at the posse, sorrow for Clara, and an overwhelming sense of helplessness that he was unable to save her. How could he face the world alone when their love had been the anchor in his life? Every tick of the clock felt like a reminder of her absence, as the warmth of shared moments faded into cold reality. In that solitude, Mr. Wells began to question how to navigate this new path without Clara by his side. Days turned into weeks, and the ache of Clara's absence lingered like a shadow over Mr. Wells's heart. But amidst the sorrow, there began to flicker a spark of determination. One evening, as he sat in the quiet of their home, he caught sight of Clara's favorite shawl draped over a chair. The soft fabric stirred something deep within him. He remembered her words about the value of every life and her unwavering spirit. With renewed resolve, Mr. Wells stood up and walked to the door. The sun was setting, casting golden rays across the horizon, illuminating a path that seemed to beckon him forward. He realized that he couldn't let despair define him. He had to act. Clara had always believed in helping others, and now it was his turn to honor her spirit by searching for her. He gathered supplies and set out on the road, feeling the weight of his grief transform into a sense of purpose. Each step he took was a promise to himself and to Clara that he would not rest until he found her. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but with every beat of his heart, he felt hope blooming anew, hinting at adventures yet to come and a resilience that would guide him through the darkness.